you might actually need to start trying less hard in order to get what you want. So there's this concept in psychology called the Yerkes-Dodson curve. Basically, it says that as we try harder and harder, our performance works in a bell curve fashion. I'm going to try to put an image here so you can see it. On one axis, we have performance. On the other, we have arousal. And as we get more interested and put more attention into something, we reach an optimal state of arousal and optimal performance. The problem is that if we put more and more and more effort into something, we can actually reach a state of anxiety and essentially like over trying, in which we're just trying too hard and it's actually causing us stress and it's actually impeding our ability to achieve this goal. I know that this sounds really kind of counterintuitive, but if you think about it, it actually makes a lot of sense. So for us humans, our minds actually can't really handle processing extremely complex information, like mass amounts of it. So a lot of times we create these little heuristics, these cognitive biases. So one of our cognitive biases is that more effort equals better outcome. But let's really think about that one. That's actually not the case, right? Like, more effort doesn't actually lead to better outcomes necessarily. And it could also be true that less effort leads to better outcome, right? And so we actually don't know what the optimal amount of effort is in order to create the outcome we want. But what we do know is that there is a point in which more and more effort will actually lead to diminishing returns. And this is something so important to remember. And one way that we often see this in psychology that's really evident is in insomnia. So a lot of times people who have insomnia try to kind of optimize for sleep. So they get a new mattress, they get an air purifier, they get the white noise machine, they start taking the sleeping pills. And what happens is that eventually they develop a kind of an anticipatory anxiety around sleep, and then they can't sleep, because they're so anxious about sleep, because basically they've spent their whole day optimizing for sleep. Maybe they're taking naps, which could actually hinder their sleep. And they've actually made it worse by putting too much effort and too much attention into it. And essentially, if they had like put a little bit less attention and effort into it, they actually would have had a better outcome. They would have potentially had better sleep. Obviously, insomnia is kind of a tricky one because there's like a biological component to it. But this is something so important to remember in work, because when you're stressed about a project, when you're stressed about an outcome, our natural inclination is to put in more work. But that's not necessarily the case. That's kind of our brain's lazy thinking that's happening here, where we're like, I'm worried about this. I'm anxious about this. I'm anxious about how I'm going to do. So I'm just going to put in more work and I'm going to just keep going and going and going. That's not the case. And that's really not like a scientific way to think. It's really important to kind of keep in mind that there's not like a complete outcome causality here between effort and outcome. All right. If you have any examples of like where like effort actually leads, like too much effort leads to diminishing results, comment below, because I think everyone would love to see better examples than the one I used in this video.